After over 25 years of marriage, we've learned that successful couples have great friendships, put each other first, and focus on light just as much as love. We believe marriage should be fun and easy.
Our goal is to share our journey with the hopes of helping others build strong, happy relationships. Join us as we continue to create our lives beyond I do.
Do you and your partner want to learn simple ways to grow closer?
Do you and your partner want to grow happier together?
Do you and your partner want to be a unified front?
Do you and your partner want to divorce-proof your marriage?
If you answered yes to these questions, you need to check out our book, Unlocking Forever, 10 Keys to a Successful Marriage Beyond I Do.
Each section focuses on a different aspect of marriage and briefly describes how we handled it in our relationship. At the end of the section, you're given an action step or key to complete with your partner.
These keys are practical steps you can immediately implement in your relationship and help you and your partner be proactive and intentional about your relationship.
You can purchase your copy on Amazon.com.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.
Before we get into our episode, we want to share this disclaimer. We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We simply want to share with you what has worked in our marriage. Now, on to our episode.
All right. Welcome back to the Beyond I Do podcast. We have with us a special guest. And the reason why she is special, because we had been trying to meet her several times before. And she's laughing now, but, it just seemed like, we just could not get it together. We chased each other for about a month, I think. Wasn't it about a month?
It was. And I think we both were a little nervous. Like, why? Yeah. What is this?
So finally, when we saw each other, it was, she does exist. So we do exist. But we have the pleasure of talking to Miss Regina Sloan, who is here with us to talk about life coaching, and she helps women overcome obstacles and create the life they want through emotional resilience. So welcome to the Beyond I Do podcast, Regina.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank y'all so much for having me. And yes, let's just be honest that y'all was chased, like I was the one rescheduling, and it wasn't. And I swear that Thursday was like, listen, I'm just gonna hide after this. I'm just gonna act like
I said, look, I was like, well, maybe she listen to the podcast.
Maybe she
I don't want to fool with them folks.
But I admired the persistence. And then once we like that, just like now, the very first time we logged in, we started talking. And so I don't know what all that was. The timing was off, but we're glad that you're here with us now. We're excited because just from the meet and greet, you have so much to offer. And in fact, when we got done there, you connected us with others. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And if you would tell the listeners a little bit about Regina, what it is that you do and how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I am a mom. I'm a wife. We have 4 children together, ages 3 to 18.
Bless you.
All right.
Yeah. We can do a whole podcast on that.
You know what? That's about our spread.
Oh, is it?
It's pretty close.
It's and ours came with some ups, downs, and differences. But at one point we had the little one.
Yeah.
Until she was 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other 2 were upper teens.
Yeah.
And so there was that big gap, and bless me.
Right, I need it. It's definitely it definitely has its pros and cons, 100%. And as we go, the pros and cons get even deeper for sure. But we just rolling with it because we don't have no other option, or we choose not to have another option.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
We have that. And my first career is actually nursing. This is my 11th year. I say about 2019 or so, I decided like I wanted to get into entrepreneurship. My husband has been an entrepreneur his entire life, and I've watched that and just kind of wanting to, initially it was like wanting to own my own time, and me clocking in for 12 hours and being gone all day. I'm just like, I don't really like this. I've never been a fan of, since I got into nursing, say 5 or 6 years into that, of how we do medicine here in the West Coast of the world. And so just I found that also what I was doing was mostly around people, like what they're thinking about themselves and even their health and what's possible. You know, our mindsets were super powerful. And that's what I learned through nursing, that although I was helping them in the medical space, a lot of conversations and things and transformations that were being had were the conversations I had with them. So that kind of got me, thinking a little bit. And I got into, I don't know how I initially heard of coaching, probably was like something on Facebook or something, but I'm like, at that time, we were getting our personal finances together, paying off debt so we can buy our first house and things like that. And we had been doing that for a couple of years. So I had got that down for us. And I'm like, well, I can help people do this. And I hear there's financial coaches. And so I got certified in that. Had one client and quit, like got super scared. I don't know if I have what it takes. Like literally, she paid me $200 to sit with her for an hour and go over her finances and help her figure it out. And she has reached out so many times since then. Girl, I still use what you told me. You changed my life. And here I am. She paid me. I'm like, oh, she don't know that I have no idea what I'm doing. And I just quit, like literally never made a post again on Facebook, like just went right back to my nursing job. So that is exactly literally what happened. I felt bad because my husband was so happy for me. Like they went downtown and got my name, my business name, like whatever, make it official. And he's like, you got this. And then like, what's happening? I haven't seen you. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. So that's really how that happened. But I know now that it was a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't have any of the tools. I was feeling a lot of things that I didn't know that was normal. It was a normal part of the process. And so went back to my nursing job like nothing happened. And I never left I never left coaching since though. I got my own coach. Like I was fine being the client, have had coaches, and I loved it so much. And then I say about 2020 or so, I was like, okay, I think I know I can help people. So I just started helping people under the table. Nobody knew I was a coach. I just was doing free help, didn't call myself a coach. That felt a lot better. And then eventually I got out of my own way. And January of 23 was like, I'm a life coach. I need to stop playing. And I put myself out there, and it's been on and popping ever since.
Very good. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
That is awesome. And you said January 23. That's when we started our podcast. So that was really a time of change.
Yes, I started mine then too. I didn't even call myself a coach then, but I got certified and was like, I don't know, it just hit me like, you're doing it and it's okay. And like, get out your own way, And so to answer the question about what I do, I still struggle with like saying exactly what I do because I cover so much in life. I really help women at every part of their life. But since I've coached so many people, I've seen like, those similar lines that even though they come to with different things, it's usually around like trying to create a positive mindset because they weren't raised that way, or they maybe picked up on some negative things along the way. And that's how they think and how they see the world, managing their emotions, because we're not taught that as children. We're kind of really taught the opposite usually, like stuff those emotions down. We're responsible for other people's emotions. So we do that, like the foundational work that, emotions won't kill you, and helping people to like experience those. And then procrastination, perfectionism is a big deal. Procrastination, perfectionism is another one because I've kind of named them all together. All of them kind of go under that. And so I pretty much help them see how they're thinking and see how their thinking is really causing their results. Because we don't spend a lot of time getting clear on like what we're thinking and how that drives the bus for us.
Right.
So once they are able to see that connection, is it usually easier to help them change those thinking patterns, those thought patterns?
Yes, I think that the difficulty at first is that we think our thoughts are facts, like what I'm thinking and believing about something must be it. And so a lot of times when people start working with me, it's, okay, I'm gonna work with you because we need to get these people over here together, and we need to like change all of the circumstantial things. And so they really get to see that, what they believe about something is optional, which becomes very empowering. It's sometimes like jarring for some people. Like, wait, like this is all an option. Like whatever I'm thinking about life, myself, religion, my marriage, my relationships, like I get to choose that because we think there's a universal truth. And so that can be a little jarring at first, but once we get past that and kind of build the evidence, like over time, seeing how that is true, how, you know, one person has a thought about something and that makes them happy, and the other person may have that thought and they hate it. And it's all around what we choose to believe. It gets a lot easier because then we get to go to creation mode. Like, what do you want to believe from here? Which can be a task in itself because then you have the world at your hands, you know, and it's like, well, I've been told what to think and what to do and what's right and what isn't all this time. How do I go from where do I go from here? So
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned imposter syndrome. So that you stepped on my toes then. And I thought back to, as you were explaining your first venture in the coaching, I remember when both kids were little and I decided I wanted to open an in-home daycare. And I contacted the state. I got all the paperwork I needed. I had created documents for parents. I had created flyers. I had a schedule for the non-existent kids. And then that was it.
The non-existent kids.
That was it.
Yep.
You remember that? That was it.
All laid out.
And I'd love to say that's the only thing that I've done that with, but it's not. I'm a wonderful planner. I am a wonderful list maker. It's the execution. And I'm just now coming to terms with the fact that that's probably imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Man, that's a lot. It could be a lot. What comes up for me is I see this all the time, and I see it in myself too. That part's easy and fun, right? When you're planning, and you feel so good about it, you got it down. But really, we're actually not doing anything, right?
Right.
And so when it's time to get out there and start talking to people, hey, I can help you. Hey, I got this daycare, and like networking and like really putting yourself out there and dealing with people, like that's the actual action. That's super scary. So it makes sense.
Right. And like you said, even with, you know, there's been little baby steps. We started the podcast, and let me tell you, when we posted that, like I posted it with this Facebook post, and I said, for those who know me, this is nothing you would expect from me.
Right.
Just to open myself up like that. But then the other part of it is, who do you think you are that somebody wants to listen to you? And so those types of thoughts, it goes back to, you create these things, you busy yourself with these things, and you think you're really doing it, and you're not. You're just keeping yourself occupied with those things instead of putting forth the effort.
Yeah. So, did you ever think about, like, especially like the daycare, like, did you ever come up with reasons why, like other reasons other than like, ooh, I'm kind of scared, but like specifically why that you didn't want to do that?
So I can't think of anything now, but things like, well, what about if I have to stop and go get my son? He was in school. Or what about if this happens? I have a really bad habit of trying to anticipate everything that could go wrong and put things in place. And that's where, with the podcast and everything that we're trying to accomplish together, it's good that I have him, because we moved into our house and we have a screen porch, and I was sitting out there with him, and I said, you know, I really want to redo this. I want to paint and get some drapes to hang and blah, blah. And so we sat there, we talked for a few minutes, and he said, all right, let's get some shoes on. Why? Let's go to Lowe's. For what? And he said, well, we got to get paint. And I'm like, wait, we got a plan. I don't know what I was planning, but we got a plan.
I paid attention to those Nike commercials back in the day. Just do it.
Just do it.
Right. Let's go. Let's do it.
Mess it up a little bit, but hey, let's do it. We'll correct that.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful process, like thinking process to have too, especially in business, podcasts, whatever, because My coach said to me when perfectionism is something I've been coached on several times, and I'm currently, still working on and gotten a lot better, obviously, to put myself out there. But one thing she had said to me that really stuck with me is that perfectionists are scary people. They're scared of, what could go wrong. They're scared of not getting it right. They're scared of failing. And so as long as you busy yourself needing things to be right and like, I'm getting this all together, and we think we're doing our due diligence, really kind of pushing off the inevitable of doing something and something going wrong, because it will.
There's a quote by Marianne Williamson. It's the quote from Coach Carter where he asked, what are you afraid of? And the boy finally at the end starts saying it. And what's your biggest fear? Yes. And she says that it's not that you'll fail, it's that you'll succeed. And so that kind of clicked with me, because then, like you said, with when you first started coaching, even though there was success there, that fear outweighed, because once you're successful with that one, that means you got to go do it again.
And that still happens. I have the tools now to kind of talk myself off the cliff, but every time I sign a client, I'm like, oh my God, hold up. Now we at 1, 2, 3, like what's happening? Like every single time. And in the little increments, like, it ain't too late to go back, right? Like, you didn't did it before. And I know that voice is not, it doesn't have my future in its best interest.
Right.
And so I'm able to like just hold space for that and understand, like, you're just afraid. That's fine. I have the support system that I need, but yeah, it's definitely still creeps up 100%.
I love that you say that and that you're open about that, because that's something that if you are helping other people and you still have those moments, then it kind of normalizes it for me to know that this is something that people universally can struggle with, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay in that space.
Yes, that's funny you said that, because I'll share a short story that happened just yesterday. I have a free monthly workshop every month, and they're on different topics. I'm not really, if I could go through life without having to speak in front of a lot of people, I would definitely choose that route. But just the avenue and the things that I'm doing, I'm sure that can't be done, right? So this workshop, I'm speaking to a lot of people or whoever comes onto the call, and I get really nervous, anxious. I mean, I'm sweating. I'm just like, oh my God, 5 minutes left, 3 minutes. I'm just like freaking out. And so what I've learned, like, what do I need in that moment? And so for me, it's usually, especially if it's nice, I'll go outside, I'll ground my feet, into the grass, and just like, it's fine. So yesterday I did that. I'm taking deep breaths, and I'm like really tapping in and like, what do I need to know? And I'm just looking around at the grass, just thinking like, I have something to offer here. Like, if I help one person, I've done my job, and I don't need to know all the things. Like, what do I know right now that's like literally good enough? And I found a 4-leaf clover. And so I picked it up. I'm like, this is super interesting. And I'm just like, well, I wonder what message this has for me. And I just quieted myself, and literally clear as day, what I heard was like, it's okay for you not to be perfect. And actually, people are looking for permission not to be perfect. So you showing up imperfectly gives them that permission. So that goes along with what you just said.
Yes. I love that.
And the thing about it, I've come to realize, I'm realizing more and more as we meet great people like yourself, is that professionalism is like it's an idea, and none of us are really professionals. We're just all trying to figure things out, and in figuring out, that is the fun part. That is the learning. It's invigorating, because you get to say, okay, well, even if I mess up, it's okay. And I think that's the problem with our society. It's like, you messed up, something wrong. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to have it all together.
Yeah, it's like, it's going to happen. So why is it not normalized too? And I think for me in my own personal life and people I've worked with, the conversation always goes back to childhood. And, as a parent, I've done it to my older kids for sure. I'm a lot better with my younger two because I know better. But before me and my mom and their mom and like back and forth, like, you got in trouble when you did something wrong, like, period. That was just the gist of it. And you were expected, to get it right. And I think especially in the Black culture, that served us at one point. Like, you could die, and wrong, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of those concepts that we're still holding on to when we're no longer in that unsafe space.
Right.
Now, that was one thing I know that her and I talked about in the beginning. I was like, there's no need to get a whooping that's long drawn out for something you did that was very minuscule. So I was like, we're gonna change that. I'm not gonna beat the kids to their sore.
I'm telling you.
I'm not using the extension cord, not using shoes. I'm just gonna use a couple of taps behind the behind, and that's fine. Then I'm gonna talk. You know what I'm saying? But
and explain before and after what's going on.
Exactly.
But
to be able to do that, you would have had to be a person to be able to at least somewhat manage your emotions, and most people aren't able.
Right. And that was, our kids. I think our kids made it easy for us though, because they were intelligent and they were inquisitive. So that boy will ask you, why is that wrong?
I thought about it, how being, I don't want to be, I'm an adult, and there are still things I'm trying to figure out. There are still some whoopings that I'm like, why did that even happen? And I was like, well, I don't want my kids to be 20, 25, 26 years old, still trying to figure out why this happened. So I'm hoping that when I explain stuff to them, that they understand, okay, well, now I got this. And they have come back and said, hey, you know what? I probably deserve that.
Yeah, it made sense. It sounds like you guys were intentional with that. So I love that. That's awesome.
Tried to be.
We tried to be.
Tried our best.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's perfect, but the intention behind it versus, oh, well, it was just done to me. So, and this, that hits different than I know why I'm doing it, and I've chosen to do it intentionally, and you're going to know why I'm doing it. It's just different.
Right.
I hear a lot of people say that, and it's like, yeah, that's how you was raised, but does that mean it's the right way?
Right. Right. And that goes back to the idea that we're all learning, and parenting, unfortunately, is one of those that your learning impacts a whole nother human being. So
yes,
we've had to apologize to kids. I'm sorry, that's not what I intended to happen when when we made this choice. And now that they're older, we definitely have those conversations and point out certain things. My son, like, we were 22, 23 when we had him, so we all grew up together. And so I'm like, and he points out differences between him and the girls. And I'm like, sir, I'm sorry, you were kind of the guinea pig. He told me one time, I didn't ask to be born. Sorry, none of us did.
Right. It just is what it is.
Right.
I had my oldest that I was pregnant at 15. And so we talk about that too. Like, because they're 18 and one will be 14 soon. And then you have the 6 and 3-year-old. And so I already knew when we had the 6-year-old was so different. I mean, I was just thinking about how we was going to do education, how we questioning things. Whereas with them, it was like whatever I saw was what it was. I didn't even know question that. And so we have intentional conversations. We don't have them as much now because we've had them for so many years of like, listen, you see me doing this. I didn't do that with you because I didn't know to do that. Having those conversations, even around like simple things that most people might be like, what? To even know that, like, I didn't know at 15 that your breasts were to breastfeed. No one in my family ever did that.
Right.
And so and in the hospital, that conversation didn't come up at all. And so me being the first one in my family to do it and do it openly and really pave the way in so many ways, being a trailblazer has been really inspirational. It's still hard because you look at, people and people judging you and those kinds of things. But I just try to keep the lines of communication open. And I love how, like, what you guys are talking about, like, there is no perfect way and we're going to make mistakes, whether it's business, children, I don't care what it is.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I have a random pivot right now.
Absolutely.
There was something that was said that made me think of a conversation that he and I were having yesterday. And I can't remember what was just said, but we were talking about the idea of needing closure.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was saying, for me, I'm the type that I don't need to understand the why of things. if you tell me one thing works and one thing doesn't, I'm going to do what you tell me works, and then I'm good. And so I think that that idea of closure sometimes holds people back or keeps people facing the opposite direction. Is that something that you have clients come to you to get help with?
Absolutely. A lot of my clients have done therapy for a long time. I also have done, years of therapy. And I think therapy is great for many different reasons. Specifically for like when you talk about closure and like the past of like tearing things apart, like trying to get to the bottom of, something happened to me when I was 7 and this has caused me to be, XYZ. It's more like being in the victimhood of it, which I think is people. They need that. But when I'm working with my clients, usually it's that, man, I've been doing years of therapy and these certain things I still haven't been able to just move away from a move, forward with. And what has really helped them around closure specifically, again, coming from the ideal that we get to choose what we believe. So we choose what we believe about anything and everything. And that's the basic of what I am helping my clients to see. And not for them to see what I see or believe what I believe, but for me to show them what they're thinking and how that thinking is getting in the way of what they want. And part of that in closure is needing to understand the why or needing to know exactly why something happened, or there's a lot of regret and a lot of wishes like it shouldn't have happened that way, especially if it's something that they did. Like I have done that, I should have known better, that I shouldn't have been raised this way, I shouldn't have been treated like that. There's so many things, right, that we can talk about. And what has helped my clients specifically is the idea that I have offered them and they get to decide if they want to choose it or not, of whatever happened was supposed to only because it did. And the reason why I have decided to really adhere to that thought is because you can argue with the past all day long and you're going every time. And so when we where we take our brain and where we focus on, if you look at the two different concepts of like, oh, that shouldn't have happened, and all of the thoughts and the feelings and all that and the spinning and maybe even the hatred for certain people and the unhappiness in life and not you can't move forward, like all that happens from when we think, I need to understand why they did. I mean, some of these people may even be dead. They may not, might even have a conversation with them, or even if they did, they may say, oh, you deserved it, or
right. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. They may deny it, like all kinds of things. So you can look at it, what happens to someone's life when they look at it from that perspective versus I right now want to be happy and want to enjoy my life and I want to create something. So from that space, whatever happened was supposed to because it happened.
Right.
Right.
Where do I want to go from here? What do I want to create from here? And it gets our brain into really creation mode, because over here is a lot of spinning and a lot of blaming and a lot of self-inflicting harm. And even like to our close relationships, right? Because if we're in turmoil within ourselves, then that puts a halt on what we can create outside of that. So we get to choose, like, do I want to sit in that and mulch over that and need answers and all that? And, they get to, but then you can also be like, dang, yeah, that happened. I can never go back. All of it's done. It was supposed to, I was supposed to have the exact parents I had. I was supposed to, whatever. And it's all of it's made believe. Like, I love how you said, like, it's all made up, like it is, but which one serves you to create what you want?
Right.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that when we were talking about that, it was like, well, even if you go to the individual and hear exactly what you want to hear, it still doesn't change the fact that it happened.
They can apologize and tell you, I shouldn't have done that. But then your question is going to be, well, why'd you do it?
Yeah.
A lot of times I tell my own kids, why are you trying to figure out why this person did it? Because if you start to understand it, you know what that means.
Right. Like,
I want to understand everybody.
I don't understand.
Right. You know what I mean? And it's like that you can go that route, or you can think of like, what do I need from that situation? So a lot of us need to kind of go back and say, when that was done to me, or when I wasn't supported, or I wasn't safe, I can see how now, like I'm operating in the way that I'm unsafe. Like, what do I need to know now that is no longer true? Like, I'm a space. There's no way that would happen to me again. I wouldn't allow that. These different things, or you can even say so many ways you can pivot it. Like, what did I learn from that I can take into my parenting or into my relationships or into how I treat people? It's like that growth mindset, that forward thinking that I've just chosen to really adhere to, and my clients that have, they get to then get really creative with the things they can't control, because that's what coaching is about, like focusing only on what you can control, only. And it really serves as a good use of our time.
So one of the topics that we had listed for you was the influence of our childhood. And that's something that I'm in therapy also and have been for a few years. And there was something that happened, and I was telling her what my reaction was to it. And trying to think what it was. Okay, so I have a bad habit of getting pre-disappointed. So let's say I have a job interview, it went well. When I leave, if I haven't been offered the job, I might say, well, it's okay because I'll do X, Y, and Z. Like I've already set myself up to be disappointed, even though I haven't heard anything. And so we talked about how that's from childhood, and when you have no control over a situation and you have expectations and then they're not met. And so the experiences may not manifest in the same way, but how do we know what types of things to look for that support, for things that we've carried on with us? Does that make sense? What types of things do we need to look for that I keep doing this, I keep going back and forth?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that anytime that we want to figure out if something is healthy or not, or like something we need to kind of look into, is look at the results we're creating. Because everything we do, or however we think, that's going to drive our emotions and then drive our actions and create the results. So one example might be like for you, you may say, even for just use that example, you may have been like, I don't allow myself to sit in the majestic of like, what about the possibilities? Like the possibility of this going well. Or I find myself every time I go for something that's new, that would be fun, I don't allow myself to sit with the excitement of that. And you may decide you don't like that. Like if you hadn't gone to therapy, right? And you were just thinking like, this keeps coming up. And you decide you might not like that. And so you might then think about, well, what would I like instead? And so just asking those questions can help you lead back to like, why do I show up that way? Or for me, since we were talking about parenting, one for me was when I decided to kind of, because I used to whoop my kids, punishment, all the things. I was never as bad as how I was raised, but I was never like, oh, I was never intentionally thinking about, it's like, oh, this is what it needs to be done. I'm going to make sure you do this because I need to have blah, 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 all that. And I remember though, what was for me, it wasn't that someone said something to me about it that pushed me. It was like me watching the results I was creating. And at that time, oldest, it's like 11, 12. And we had typically had a good relationship up until that age. And that's about the time where he's like, hold on, like you probably like you hitting on me and doing this, that's not cool. And so I started seeing like there was a distance and there was, the anger that he would have. And so my results that I created, I'm thinking like, what is going on? And I'm getting curious. So I think curiosity is like one of the best emotions that we can have. It's an actual emotion that you have when you are really feeling like interested in something, like what is going on? And that caused me to be like, well, have a conversation with him. He's old enough to talk to you about, what's going on, right? And so we have a conversation and it boiled down to that. Like, I'm always getting in trouble and I'm this and this and this. So that caused me to go on the path of like, okay, I know I was told this. I know this was done, but I didn't really like it for me either. And then I'm looking at me and my parents, relationship, or me and my grandmothers, and I'm looking at their parents. I'm like, I'm just recreating this.
Right.
Decide, do I want that? Like, that's the most powerful thing. Like anything you don't want, you can change that. So that's what I will offer, is to think of the different parts of our lives or the results we're creating with relationships, with people, with ourselves, how we treat ourselves. Are we beating ourselves up? Are we going to the kitchen and eating because we don't know how to deal with the emotions we have, instead of just saying, hey, I'm sad because XYZ, and just decide like, I don't really like that. And then get curious about, where is that coming from? And that can lead you to something, because we all have that innate wisdom.
Yeah.
It's hard to tap into that and to be accountable for that.
Yeah. That's why we have safe spaces, because we don't sit, most people aren't like, our time is taken up with something, right? Like we're working, we got, you know, podcasting, we got businesses, we have kids we're raising, you know, and then the little bit you do have, I mean, Netflix and chill for a second. Let me scroll on the, you know, so sometimes creating, that's the good thing about having coaches or therapists and things like that, because it's that full hour where it's you and your mind. And if we usually don't carve out the time for that, most of us are not going to do that on our own.
Yeah. I think that, you know, our society now is like, especially with the internet, and you hear these gurus that come on social media like, why are you sitting down on your butt not doing nothing? Why are you not starting a business? Why are you not doing this? And it's like there's this rush, and then when you see all these uh entertainers or likewise, they're promoting these products and they're telling you this, this, and the third. Reality TV shows telling people, you know, where you know it's just so fast paced, and it's like you're almost made to feel like if you working just a simple 9 to 5, you are less of a creature. It's
Yes, right?
you need to be having 15 streams of income. And I think people get discouraged by those messages. And it's like they just turn within. It's like, I'm not gonna do nothing. I'm just gonna
Yeah. Because you're overwhelmed, right? Like you got, like you said, you got somebody, how you need to be doing this, you be doing that, and you're like, okay, I do. And you got all these things running, and then like, what do I do with all this information? And so our brain automatically shuts down. Like, period. Okay, let me go to Netflix. Let me go to social media. Let me go to eating. Let me go to just, you know, whatever. But we also have to, and this is not something someone would know, but every person is like, oh, what are you doing sitting down? You need to do X, Y, Z. We're used to being, a lot of us are used to being talked to like that from childhood.
Yep.
So we're already connected to that. Like, oh, maybe I need to. And then follow. And then the next 100,000 follow, you know, and so they're getting paid for creating these messages.
Right, exactly.
Bring us in. And that's probably not even how they did it. And they probably have safe spaces and slowing down and like all the things that it takes, you know. And I think also there's a difference between, because, you know, I have coaches who are 7, 8-figure earners, and they talk about this. They have clients who have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 700,000 followers. Some that have maybe 1 million followers, not making no money, you know, or not really doing what they're talking about on social media. It's a thing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that, and that, I think what I said earlier when you shared with us, you know, you deal with some of these things, is that shows us that you're practicing what you preach.
Yeah.
And so for us, we put this out there, but we also have some episodes where we've talked about some not so positive things, and that's something that we're venturing into, to be open, because like it hasn't been rainbows and sunshine every single day. And so I believe that honesty is needed, so that you realize we don't have this large following and we just made stuff up to get them.
Right. You
understand?
You understand that there have been moments where, of course, within 26 years that her and I were like, you know, I don't know if this is gonna work. You know, and explaining how we came to that, you know. And people need to see that real. And I'm real careful about telling people, you know, well, you talk a lot. Maybe you should get into real estate, or maybe be a lawyer. Find out what you want to do. Just do what you want to do.
Yeah. And y'all just said so many beautiful things. One thing that comes to mind for me is like when I talk about being afraid and put myself out there, can I really do this? Like, I know that will always be with me. And I just know that because I know people who are, when I think of, you know, we use money because it kind of allows you to see where you are, right? Like money can make the more value you've given the world. Not that I think that's the end all be all, but people who are making so, like, they still have to get coached. They still have to remind themselves. I just got coached a few weeks ago by someone who, I mean, she done made 50 million in her business. And she's like, I'm like, listen, I am not believing that I can do whatever it is I was talking about. And she was like, she said, you're in the beginning, you know, beginner years of your business. You're building evidence to what you're doing. It's very difficult. She said, I have years of evidence that shows me that I'm good at what I do, that I provide value. And I still want to say, maybe I should go back to working tables. Maybe this ain't for me. So I know this is never going to leave me. It's a normal and people get to pick and choose how they want to show up online. And I think that's important to decide that. Right.
Yeah.
Hear that part. But for me, authenticity is so important, but you can't have that without being vulnerable, right?
Right.
When you're sharing you guys' personal story, like it's a little bit of that. I think it's normal. Like, what are they going to think? You know, what are people going to think about me?
Right.
Yeah.
There's people that need to hear that because we've been
Right.
together 3 years and y'all never had an argument. Like, wow, something must be wrong with us. We can't make it past 30 days.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's part of it is, you know, we're regular people and we were married young. That was another thing. I remember asking my mom once, we were out somewhere and the kids were little and like, why are these people looking at us? And she said, y'all are an oddity. Just don't see that. You young Black couple with kids. And
Yep.
you just don't see it. And so we're hoping that this opens the door to see that we exist, you exist. We've had some guests on that we're here. It's just that we're not
vocal,
making that loud obnoxious noise.
We
look at me,
our hands.
right?
Right, it's just a lot going on,
dancing.
reels and all the different things. Yeah, but I 100% agree with you about the authenticity, and I think it goes to show you have two people, like from two different households. Y'all already think differently because me and my husband had to come to those terms too. We think differently about almost everything, and so we bring that together, there's gonna be issues, right? And like we're in therapy now, just because like, listen, we struggle in our communication. How can we figure this out? Because we both saying the same thing, but we're saying it in a different way. And I'm taking the offended, you take like what's happening
differently. Yep.
Yeah, it's been beautiful being able to have someone even right here on Zoom for us to like talk through and them to like jump in and ask questions like, oh, okay. Yeah. Us to hear what's really going on and to bring us back to center on like what's really important. And it's not always about being right. It's not always about having it your way, which is something I've had to work through myself. And it's been really interesting. And plus you think about like, what do you see growing up when you're talking about relationships? For me, my family, I didn't see any, and still to this day in my family, I don't see any healthy relationships. And relationships, you can see the women berated the men, or they, we're very masculine in my family. So that's all that I saw. And so to be with someone that and allow him the space to take care of me and make decisions and do what he innately wanted to do was very, very, very hard and almost impossible. Like I didn't see it as possible. So I think it's powerful to hear stories from people who've been together, to get help when you need it. I love how Black folks are starting to talk about therapy more. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. And we got to realize we're only a few generations away from not having any choices with our life.
Exactly.
Right. And that was my grandmother made a comment and my response came out really quick before I thought about it. It was a negative comment about therapy. And I was like, no, people need therapy. She said something about prayer. Oh, okay, well, Jesus made the therapist. Think about it. Because we
can pray therapy. How about that?
Right. We have neglected that part for so long. We've been taught don't tell our business. And the things that it's not just I'm sad. Depression is a real thing. I remember when our son was younger and both of our moms had a fit. He was diagnosed with ADHD and they didn't want him on medicine. Nothing like having a kid on medicine, drop him off at grandmama's, and she decide not to give him medicine for her to realize the difference.
Yeah.
And as he got older, we have a doctor here locally that did he puts electrodes on and you could see the brain waves and when he was fading the inactivity. And so we had that to show them, no, this is real. Like, I'm not going to come and take your heart medicine and tell you can't take it. So you need to give him his medicine.
We've had people say, stuff like, the typical stuff, well, he don't need no medicine. He just need an ass whooping.
Yeah.
That ain't that. I mean, that wasn't the greatest dang thing in the world any dog way. And I know my child, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not finna mess his entire life up because I'm listening to what you say.
Right.
And that's the key point too. Like, where are we getting this information from? Like, who are you listening to?
Right.
they have, when we talk about our thoughts about the world, their view is so different than subsequent generations, right? Like there was a time where you'd be crazy to say something was wrong with your Black child, that they needed something, they needed help, right? It was unsafe. It's unsafe to do all these things that we can do now. And, I have that conversation with my grandma too. And I have to just remind myself that what she's saying to me is a truth, her perspective.
Right. I like
right.
Grandma. I appreciate it.
Right.
And like you say, yeah, okay, all right, listen, okay, and you just keep on going.
Right. From their perspective.
That's one
Yeah.
thing we said, in some of our episodes, we were like, you always have to consider the source. And it's like, when it comes to maintaining a healthy relationship, who am I listening to? Do they have healthy relationships? I don't care if it's my mama or a cousin or whoever.
Right.
Because if you're on your fifth marriage, what is you gonna tell me?
Right.
Right.
What not to do.
Right, exactly.
In my first one, this is what I did. Don't do that. My second one, this is what I did. Don't do that either.
Yes, and so it's interesting too, because my grandmother actually has talked to my mom about this. Like, Regina, don't say nothing. I don't share things with people that I know are not going to understand, right? And I'm just like, yeah, we good, because they just don't get it. Prime example, my grandmother was just going on a whole rant about how a man should not be taking care of his daughter. Think about where they came from, like taking care, like baths, sleeping with them and things like that. But look where they came from, like the stuff that was happening when she was young, her kid, all kinds of stuff was happening, and nobody better say anything. So that was unsafe, and now we have Black men that are showing their daughters love in such a beautiful way that they need to be cared for. And fathers can change diapers, they can give baths, and they can, do all that.
His mom, I think. So I wasn't her favorite in the beginning. And I think there was one comment that set her over the edge. We had been with her to church, and our son was a baby. And so we went out to eat. We just got done eating, and he said, well, I'm gonna go change his diaper. And he went to get up, he's unbuckling. And as he's walking off, she said, he don't mind doing that. I said, doing what? He don't mind changing him, Miss Mildred. He ain't mind making him.
Period.
So I lost a whole lot of points, but I'm like that was but like my dad probably didn't change my diaper. So it wasn't that I had this experience with my father and that's what I expected. That's not what I want in a husband or a father.
Right.
And this is what we're creating. This is what we're creating. And so she grew. I grew on her over time, and before she passed, I think I was in good
Once she
standing.
realized you wasn't going nowhere.
Right, like I might as well.
Right.
You know what? That makes me think too that when we are talking, especially to past generations, people who have already kind of did their raising and things like that, this is for anyone that's like talking to someone that gets kind of offended. Like it causes them, like I found that in my life, like there's a lot of things in my household that I do that is not done in my family. My entire, it's like 50 something of us. We homeschool, kids run around with shoes off, we swimming in lakes. I don't hit them. There's a lot of things that's happening. They're like, okay, somebody need to get her and help her. Like, I know that's what they're thinking. And so, but also what I've had to realize that me and my mom have had altercations, like different, like, hey, like you can't talk to my kids like that, or you can't talk to them like that, different things like that, or, hey, I don't want them eating that. And this is why, that. But what I realized is that it causes them to think, oh, I did something wrong. Like they get offended because they're like, oh, wait. You're saying something about me. Like initially, that's how they feel. Like
what you saying? I raised you wrong. Yeah,
that's exactly.
That's right. And my mom is the martyr of all martyrs. So that is exactly what she would be thinking.
Yeah, so it causes them to be like, when they see that, oh, there are other options, it is nothing to do with us. They just start like, take it personal because like, man, this is what I did. So you saying something wrong with that. And so I've had to learn to kind of hold space for that and let them have their feelings, not to or explain or not to feel like I'm doing something wrong, but remind myself that that's their stuff that they're dealing with. And not for me to take.
I know within our family, my daughter, I can say the same thing he says. And we pick at her now. One of her favorite phrases is, she ain't have to do all that. But he can say the same thing and she receives it. And she's a huge daddy's girl. But the flip side of that is my son. My son and I, we have an understanding and a connection that's just different. And so I don't see it as my daughter not liking me as much. Like, I don't see it that way. I just see it as she has a connection with her dad. My son has a connection with me. It doesn't mean they love us any less. It doesn't mean we love them any less. It's, I mean, we're people, and especially now that they're older, they're grown, they're actual adults.
Yeah.
I know, right? But that's beautiful that they have, like, both personalities attract people to other, one to one parent and stuff like that, because that is the same dynamic here. And I think when we just allow that to just be and not make it a problem, like it sounds like you're saying, it creates such a beautiful dynamic, not just with her with him, but then her with you, because she can like be herself and not have to offend my mom because I'd rather talk to dad right now. Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
That was one of those things I had to learn too. Like, I was used to how I was raised. So, just an example of when she turned 21. When she turned 21, that child came in the house with a bottle of peach crown. All right. So,
it's the never ending bottle, because it's always a bottle sitting on her nightstand.
And one of my friends had met, we were just talking about it. And shoot, my child ain't finna be drinking in front of me. And I was like, well, shoot, I mean, it's not that serious, because, I'd rather her do it at the house with me than to be out there to mess around and get a DUI or hurt somebody or something like that. So,
And she's of age.
Yeah, she's of age. And it's not like she just overdoes it. She has to drink when she get out of work, then she going to sleep,
Someone said something about her spending the night with her friend.
Yeah.
Her friend has an apartment. She'll go to her friend's apartment. She stays the night over there. Well, that wouldn't be mine. She's grown. Like, if she wanted to, she could pack up and go move.
Only thing we tell them is, hey,
let us know.
Out, let us know.
Right. Let us know so that we're not worried.
She'll come in. She'll be like, well, I'm staying at my friend's house now. Okay. All right, cool.
And so, and that's a beautiful example too, because y'all have that relationship and that dynamic, there is no sneaking that needs to be had.
Right.
Going over here versus she was going to probably do it anyway, and or bottle it all up and then get crazy when she do feel enough to do it. But I think that's the same concept around sex too. Like when we talk about not allowed, it won't be happening in my house. We think that not having the conversations and things like that will keep them from doing it, when no, they're just gonna find out the different ways.
Exactly. And it's gonna make it more appealing.
Somebody that knows what they're talking about. All my advice came from my friends and cousins and siblings and brothers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like you found out. Yeah.
Oh, that was wrong.
Right. So it'd be better to like, hey, let's have this conversation, because I know I'm gonna tell you best. And I also want to be that person that you remember having that conversation with, or if you're drinking, I'd rather you want to come in, to the house. And because I'll say, when I was young, I remember one instance I had been drinking and I doing something else, and I was driving. I was like, this thing right. I shouldn't be doing this. Well, thankfully, my mom and dad's house was right down the street. Now, what would have happened if I had parents that was like, oh, no, we can't be having that. Da, da, da. I would have maybe tried to drive across town, and God knows what would have happened.
Right. And we've had that happen with her. But my thing is, we wanted to raise decent, compassionate, loving, likable human beings.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And from there, we'll deal with it. But and that's what we have. And all of our kids, we have 2 birth children, 2 adopted children, and they have the most beautiful spirits. They are personable, and that's what we wanted. We didn't want, sometimes you look at adult assholes.
You're right.
You have to think they started somewhere.
Yep.
Right.
We didn't want that.
For adults that are doing what their parents tell them to do and they don't. This is how we are 20, 25, 30 and have no idea who we are.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was my thing. Like I just wanted my kids to be decent humans, and they are. And sometimes, especially that girl, sometimes she shares too much.
Yeah, she does.
But she's comfortable. That was even when they were little. You said something about the things when they were little. We had to stop our kids from getting out of the tub and just walking around with no clothes on.
That's us.
Because I'm like, if somebody sees that, they're gonna take y'all. Y'all gotta stop that. But with me and him, we're doing something good because they're comfortable and they feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that's been the goal. I didn't always have that.
Yeah. And I think too there's an
goal.
I think there's an innate alarm in all of us that kind of knows something ain't right, this and this. But as parents, especially Black parents, I think it stems from back when it made sense to do it. We continue to want to place so much fear and so much control so that end up how we want it to end up. And what it does is it kind of falters that inner guidance that we all have. Like, if and I've noticed that because we think our 3-year-old is just so, she'll do anything with anybody and do because she's just so flamboyant and so, whatever. But I've watched her, I've sat back and watched her in public and I've seen her pick and choose who she talks to. Yeah. I've seen her kind of go to the water and be like, oh no, this don't seem right and run back. Right. So they know, and you can be there to help at whatever age they are, but help really leading them to like trust. What do you think? My kids my daughter's like, do you like this? Or what do you think? What do you like about it? Because I want it to be her own voice and not what mama what daddy gonna say, that kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely.
And I never did want to be that parent that, has, I had a friend. Well, she was like this at one point in time. I had a friend that you couldn't just walk up and just scare, like, and she was like that, you just can just walk up on there.
You
and
could walk up and touch me sometimes.
Yeah, I might have touch on the shoulder. I might have got popped. Like, where the heck is that coming from? But her and I talking and her being open and sharing with me the things that happened to her in the past allowed me to understand where those things came from. So so I don't want to create that. So I didn't want to be the fear instiller. I wanted to be the cool parent. I want you to be able to come talk to me. And I think our parents did a decent job, but it's like they put more fear in us than they did, hey, you can come talk to me. You beat me for 13 years and then on some teenagers, you want me to come talk to you.
Right. No.
Right? There's a meme going around. There's a meme going around saying that, like, if something happens bad at 3 a.m., I don't want my daughter to say, oh shit, what is mom gonna think? I want her to be like, oh, let me call my mom. I need help.
Yeah, exactly. And that was our thing. I know my mom she'd get upset on the phone and hang the phone up in my face and then call back and talk normal. Ma'am, no, I need time.
And these are emotions.
What just happened.
Right. Like, do you not know that this just happened? But like, no conversation, none of their feelings were ever validated as kids.
Right.
Ever. Right. And then most of them were violated sexually and then physically.
Right.
All of that. And then you give them kids. Right. And they did mistake, so it just trickles down. But I'm really seeing more and more Black people, especially like, Uncle Johnny, we need to be talking about him. Somebody, oh, my daughter can't spend a night,
We're talking about, Uncle Johnny, you get fresh now. You got to watch yourself.
Right. We can acknowledge that. Then we need to do better. Uncle Johnny don't need to come to Christmas.
Yes, stuff like that. Or actually, maybe I shouldn't hit them every time they say something. Maybe I should listen. Because what people don't understand is that when you're raising your kids not to question you, for example, or not to talk back, and then we want them to be adults to speak up for themselves and ask questions. They're not going to do that. They're going to be timid, scared, and like they had to be when they were younger.
Right.
And then I'm going to be scared to come talk to you when I need to talk to you. know how this gonna go.
Right.
No matter how old you are, right? That alert system goes off because of what you were conditioned to believe. So I'm seeing us come around. And I think that having conversations like this can spark something in someone. I mean, and even my grandmother, it's so beautiful. Like the workshop I did yesterday, she came to the workshop and it's like, wow, it's just full circle, right? And it was around boundaries. And she struggles bad with that for many different reasons. So she's asking questions and she's learning, and we've talked outside of that. And so her being in her 70s, and being like, wow, okay, I can see that. Like, it's just, it's a beautiful thing.
Right. That's fantastic.
That's one thing. My mom passed away in 2015. And I hate that she wasn't able to get the healing that she needed or that would have helped her do better, so to speak. But she and I were in a good place, and I'm thankful for that. But I think about the what she must have gone through because of what we were outwardly seeing. And if we're outwardly seeing these things, inside must be, in turmoil.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I mean, we talking about people where teachers was able to do all kind of, they whooping you at school, all kind of crazy stuff was happening.
We had a pedal room.
Right?
I never went in it because all it took was to hear swats.
Yeah, me too.
No, I'm be good. And then the people that was at my house, they was crazy. My mama was crazy.
My mama, she passed away in 2019, and my dad, he passed away in 96, the year before we got married. And she always had this little scar right here above her breast. And I remember asking her one day, I said, Mama, where did that scar come from? She said, oh, this when your brother daddy shot me. I was like, what?
Like, what is happening?
What? He shot you?
Nonchalantly, just
like
hold on. Like that was supposed to happen. Like
he shot you, mean he tried to kill you?
Like what?
She survived that, and I don't know. I'm sure she probably never got any mental help for that. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about the things that they are dealing with and have dealt with in the past, and it's like you have to kind of give some type of understanding to them.
Yeah, not to condone it, but like I get it because there's women living today still. My grandma's one of them that they've lived at a time where they were unable to go to the bank, get a car, get a loan, do nothing. They had to have a man speak for them. So
we were my grandmother and I were talking one day, and in the same conversation, she said, because we had good white folks around here before these new people started coming in. Further in the conversation. And then that one time they let the dogs out on me.
See what I'm saying?
Oh, the good white people.
See what I'm saying?
like, what do you mean?
What they just suppressed?
So that that is the purest form of cognitive dissonance. Like they were good white people, but they let the dogs out on you.
Right, and that was good.
There was no There was no connection to these are the same people.
They're good because you didn't get lynched or something.
I guess I don't know. I was so confused. And I wasn't about to ask any questions.
Oh yeah.
You was just like, wait, hold on, can we pause?
I wasn't about. I don't think I wanted to understand that line of thinking, but.
So I think that, like, if you think about that, like your mom and your grandma's age, right? And like where we are today, you can go on TikTok right now, Facebook right now, see black folks, black men loving on their babies, black young families together, homesteading, not that that's the goal we need to, but like we're tapping into what we want to do with our families.
Right.
Well, that was we had this discussion the other day with our son. And he was like, black people this and black people that. Was a lot of niggas. I said, I can't let you say that now. Statistically, there are some things going on in our community, but I mean, we grew up where we moved from was a military community. So we have a military base right near us. And I just seen so many black men all the time with their kids in public, shopping with them, taking them to games and in recreation, cheering them on, not beating them upside the head, but, like happily coaching kids, softball or baseball teams. You know what I'm saying? So it's like some of that stuff is like, it's
and when
we're putting it out there to make us look bad.
Right.
I mean, I'm
You
seeing.
talk to people, like, who do you know? Most people will say, I know a lot of men take care of their kids. Like,
Right.
talk to people individually, they all
Right.
say that. So we have to be mindful too that the media controls what the masses believe.
Yes.
Exactly.
That
Right.
also to be the case.
Right. And it's in our best interest to look around us and see and know better.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily in the best interest of others.
Right.
Right.
We have to find the good in us. So
Yep.
that's, you know.
And I think that we do that more and more as we have. I know you guys talked about maybe getting into the coaching space and me being a coach. Like, it's a predominantly white female thing. And I'm in spaces where they talk about that. Like, we have, BIPOC communities where we can have our own, spaces, and the conversation is being had. So the more we have Black coaches get into that, the more that we bring a different dynamic, white people are not able to understand certain things in the physical, mental, or emotional level. Not that you can't. Some of my best coaching has come from white people, right? But the more we can get us into the space, the more we it's possible. I mean, even back when you didn't see Black people on TV or you didn't see a Black doctor, like, it's the same concept. Like, we can see Black people getting in, whether it is a job that they want to have, a career they want to have, maybe they want to be an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. But I think that as a mom, and especially 3 of my kids being girls, how important it is for whether I fail, whatever that might look like, for them to see, like, oh, she's building something of her own, and she's, they see me being nervous, and we have those conversations, and they see me, I'm so scared to go do this, but I'm gonna go do it anyway, and having these conversations. So it's normalized in their mind, whereas when we were raised, everyone in our mind, although we weren't saying this, there was something wrong if things weren't perfect, if you were struggling.
Right.
Narrative.
One thing that I've tried to instill in our kids is that success is what you decide success is. And so if you're happy doing X, Y, and Z, don't let society or your quote unquote friends or family tell you, no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z. And then that means that.
Because we told them, it's like, what you want to do when you get out of school? I wasn't finna be like, I wasn't gonna be the parent to say, you got to do this, you got to go to college, you got to do. We just want you to do something. Like,
you need a plan.
You need a plan,
right?
Whatever you decide to do, because you're not finna look at me. 30
sit up here on my couch.
I became a lawyer because you told me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And you know what, too? It's so funny because it's not just a Black community like that. I know a lot of people from India, Philippines, like they, especially Chinese, like they're also struggling with that from past, generations. You're going to do this because these certain 3 or 4 things mean that you're important, or you're gonna make money, whatever. So they struggle with that too.
There's a guy I follow on YouTube. I hadn't followed him in a while, but he was an Indian guy, no, Asian. I'm sorry. He was an actual doctor, and he was like, I quit because I like working on cars.
Wow.
I couldn't tell my family that, you know what I'm saying? And it was just interesting, and he's built this a massive following on YouTube and everything. But
probably with a lot of Asians that are like, wait, what?
Right.
That. Okay.
And that probably was not easy for him to do. So him being vulnerable and authentic, right? And showing himself like other people, yo, this is possible. You do know you don't have to follow that, right?
Right.
Right. You need that in every space.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap it up. This has been wonderful.
Look, we can talk all night. No, that's not the reality. So both of our spaces. Yeah, I'm going to let you
So for our listeners, if we want to find you online, if we want to learn more about your services and what it is that you do, where can we find you?
Yeah, thank you. It's been so fun. First of all, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And a beautiful conversation. So if someone wants to connect with me, I am on Facebook at Regina Sloan. I am on Instagram at Your Mindset Nurse, spelled just like it sounds. And then I also on both of those platforms. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn too. Most people aren't on there, but Regina Sloan on LinkedIn. And everything I do is all over there. I have these platforms to serve people. So, you can connect with me there, learn all about, how to make anything better that you have going on. I post mostly every day about those kinds of things. I do have a monthly workshop. They're usually at the end of the month. That's always on my social media, like in the cover page or something. My email is info@reginasloancoaching.com. And if anyone, they are already looking for a life coach and they're, loving what they're hearing here, you can just simply email me or DM me on any of those platforms. I offer a free consult and it's an hour, and we just get really clear on where they are, like where are you struggling, where do you want to be, and the roadmap essentially to how to get you where you want to go. It is no hassle. We decide if you want to move forward or not, but either way, they leave knowing what's up, what they need to do.
All right. We thank you so much. We appreciate it. This has been wonderful. And I feel so motivated just from our conversation.
Yep.
We shared with you before we started that both of us had a kind of rough day, but this conversation has helped. What about you?
It definitely helped.
It helped you?
Yay! I love that. Yeah, this has been great too, because I was kind of like, too, like the day has been busy for me. And it's just amazing what, connecting with other people and just having a genuine conversation can do 100%. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
And I will say this, we're a married couple. We've been at it for a while. So if you have any questions, you get tired.
Absolutely right.
Feel like you're going choking, just say,
get up, Miss Margaret.
I might need a little consult,
Yeah, y'all haven't met with Elva
we
yet?
Are still,
we're still working on it. But,
we can't multitask. We can't multitask. And since we met with you before, we wrote a book.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we kind of shifted energy with that. And so right now, we're trying to get that finalized to determine a release date.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely. I don't know if I see a lot of your posts. You know how the algorithm is online, but definitely let me know. One thing I do with my clients, I try to do when they sign up, especially if it's usually something specific we're working on, right? And so I know that ahead of time. I like to use like local businesses, people I know, to gift them something. So like Stephanie, she has that journal, and I bought her journal, like sent it to some of my clients. And so definitely let it be something I want to put in my back pocket for sure. Especially when some people come to me about relationships specifically too.
Yeah, we'll definitely link up on all your socials and everything. And
thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When I'm ready, you definitely can message me if you're like, I don't know what to do or how to get started or what. Like, I can definitely direction.
Absolutely. Look, we got it recorded.
You're right. I can't say I didn't do that. Dang.
Look, Regina said y'all going to find me though.
Right. That's so funny.
Y'all can find me, but I ain't got an answer.
Y'all can find me. You got me.
That's so funny. That is so hilarious. So I'll continue to send people y'all way. I love that y'all are doing this, and to have like a couple doing it together, I love it. I think it's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate you. And once again, we're going to have all of your information posted with the episode so people can find you. But thank you for sharing this time with us.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Beyond I Do podcast.
Please make sure to like this episode and also subscribe to our podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Beyond I Do podcast.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.